welcome to my channel. This is Stacie Ellis, and I'm here to talk to you guys about a book that I read that really changed my marriage for the better, and it is Different by Design by John MacArthur. This book has a biblical approach to marriage and how we should act as Christians within a marriage. Now, I got this from Half Price Books, which means that it's not very easy to find, I guess you could say. This book was written 1994 actually. And so you're not gonna find this in your typical bookstore, Barnes and Nobles, Mardell, all of those. They're not gonna be there because this was written a while ago. But I'm sure if you look online, or if you are lucky like I was, go to a Half Price bookstore or another bookstore that has older books, you might find it. It'll definitely be online, and you can go to www.gty.org, and they sell all of John MacArthur's books, and you'll be able to order it there if you cannot find it, you know, on Amazon or just online in general. If you're not familiar with John MacArthur, he is a pastor who does not care what other people think. He wants to be as accurate with scripture as possible. And that sometimes means going against what the traditional way of thinking is. I've read a few of his books, and I've been a Christian for a long time, but I've had a lot of misconceptions on how a Christian should behave and the way that the church should be. And reading his books and listening to his sermons, let me tell you, he has opened my eyes to so many things. And you know, I'm very grateful for John MacArthur. If you're not familiar with him, you can check out, he has a YouTube, Grace to You. He has tons of books. You go to any Christian bookstore and there's tons of John MacArthur books. I have quite a few. He's actually one of my favorite writers. I wanted to talk to you guys about this book. I'm not going to go over everything in here because I want you to have a chance to read it. But this talks about the roles of the man and the woman within the marriage. I'm a woman, so I'm going to focus mainly on the woman aspect of this book. Disclaimer. I already know that some of you guys are going to be watching this video and you're going to be thinking, okay, she is crazy. She is stuck in the Stone Age. Her way of thinking is so crazy in terms of what a marriage should be like. Don't you know that this is the 21st century and we should be past that and all this and that. Well, apparently something that we're doing is not working, because over 50% of marriages are ending in divorce nowadays. So if you think that the way that things are going now are working, well, apparently they're not. So let's get that out. And if you still believe that what I'm saying is not right, that's fine. You look in the Bible for yourself. You study it for yourself. You're supposed to do that anyways. You're not supposed to just take what I say. You're not supposed to take just what John MacArthur says. You're supposed to look in the Bible for yourself and figure it out for yourself. So I will be linking some scriptures down below. You can look at those, or you can look up your own scriptures. That's up to you. But I want to encourage you, even if you're listening to me today and you do agree, still look up those scriptures, because you shouldn't just take anyone's word for anything that they say. You need to look it up for yourself so that way you know if it's true or not. So John MacArthur, like I said, he does not care what the typical person believes in terms of how society should be run, the church should be run, all of that. He just wants to look in the Bible. And so he did that with this book. So this book starts off with the first marriage union that we have, which is Adam and Eve. And he talks about how because of sin, the marriage union went from being a perfect union to a corrupt union with the fall of man. Okay, so already with the very first marriage, we have drama. And so, of course, we're going to have some drama in our marriages if the first marriage did not do well. Of course, we're going to have some problems too. So we should expect that, right? Because there's sin, we're all sinful, we're going to do sinful things. You know, Adam ate some fruit, Eve ate some fruit, she listened to a serpent, she got deceived, you know, that happens, we all do that, we get deceived in all things, and we do things, and we get deceived, and yeah, so for the very beginning, we had some conflict in marriage. Now that doesn't mean that marriage is not a good thing, and I'll have another video about that later. There's going to be some conflict, you know, because of the curse, but we need to be aware that it's going to happen, and we need to keep our mind on what we know we are to do. So he starts off with that, and then he hits home with women, talking about submission. And you know, the book of Corinthians, Paul talks about marriage. And the reason why Paul talks about marriage is because in Corinth, feminism was taking lead, and women who, you know, were stuck in this pagan ideas of how the church should be run and all that, they were infiltrating their beliefs into the church. So now you have women who are speaking in church, who are taking charge and acting recklessly and not according to the way that God purposely designed. Because of that, Paul had to write them a letter and say, I'm gonna need you to be submissive to your husbands, and you need to talk to your husband. Don't just be talking all loud and blurting everything all out to everybody and disturbing church services. And it was just really crazy in the Corinth church. Actually, it's a lot like a lot of our churches nowadays, unfortunately. People speaking out of term and hooting and hollering, and that's another video for another time. But read the book of Corinthians. You'll see what I'm talking about. It is a great book. 1st and 2nd Corinthians. Books of Corinthians. Paul distinctly had to tell the women, okay, you need to be submissive to your husband. Christ is the head of every man, and man is the head of every woman. I know for some women, they hear that and they're like, I don't want no man, oh hell me, I am an independent woman, and I don't need no man telling me what to do. INDEPENDENT. Do you know what I mean? No, you're not independent. None of us are independent, especially if you're a Christian. We have our Christian community and we have God. So get that out of your head now. You're not independent, okay? And it's okay not to be independent. For some reason, we think that it's a bad thing to depend on other people and depend on God. I mean, why is that a bad thing? I don't understand it. So woman is supposed to be under the submission of man. And that is actually a very beautiful thing if you think about it. We're in a position where we can learn humility. We can learn how to hold our tongue. We can learn how to allow someone else be a better person at who they are. I mean, think about it. A man has to love us as Christ loved the church. Like, that is a impossible calling to do. Like, who can love like God? Who can love us as much as God loves us? It's like very, very difficult for that to happen. So, you know, the man has a harder task than we just have to submit to them, which means, now submission does not mean you just do whatever they say and you be like, yes, master, whatever you say, master. No, that's not what submission is. Submission is understanding that he is the leader, and you know, you guys have a relationship. You can talk to each other about decisions. You can come together like civil people, by the way, not arguing and acting like a hot mess like some people be doing. No, you can talk like adults about different decisions, and ultimately you express your opinion about whatever situation is. He expresses his opinion. He's the man. You can tell him what you prefer the decision to be, but he gets to make the ultimate decision because he's the leader. Oh, that's so not fair. Oh my goodness, like, that's not fair. Like, I think that he should do what I say, cause it's just not fair. Come on now. He has a very hard decision that he has to make, wherever it is. It's a very hard decision. He's not gonna just make a decision just based off of his own feelings. He might do so, but he's gonna be held accountable for that. If you guys are walking your walk with God, he's going to take into account what you say to him, and he's going to think about it, and he's going to weigh all his options. In Corinthians was the very first feministic movement within the church, and we are now in another movement here, a feministic movement. We have seen the rise of the woman, and it's not that it's a bad thing. I think empowering a woman is a good thing, but it can go to the extreme. We don't want to get to the point where we see women so capable of doing everything that we don't need a man. Like, we do need a man. We need each other. Just like the man needs the woman, we need the man. And I don't see why that has to be seen as a bad thing. We know, women know that men need us. We know that. We know that. So why is it such a bad thing for us to need them? It's not. It's a beautiful thing. We need each other. It's a beautiful thing. That's why marriages work. So, the feministic movement actually started during the time of the war. You had all these men leaving out, going to war, and society still had to go on and people still had to live, so women took on more jobs, and they were doing things around the house and doing the manly things as well. And so that actually started the movement, and women are now working regularly, and they're not in the household as much. So that's where it originated. Okay, so our society is no longer a society where a woman just stays in the house and cooks and cleans and caters to the children anymore. We now are working. But I will say that you have to find balance if you do that. I'm not against a woman working. So let me get that very straight. I'm a woman, I work. I'm in school. So I don't want you to think that I'm against it. But what I do have a problem with is when women get so entangled with their work world that their family and their household is neglected. I have a problem when I go to people's house and they're a working mother, but their children are being raised by other people, their house is in shambles, their relationship with her husband is in shambles. That's when I have a problem. And some of you guys might be thinking, well, our economy is so bad today, so we have to work or we'll not be able to survive. That might be true to a certain extent, but I'm pretty sure that some of the things that you are going to work for is not for just necessities of eat and having a roof over your head. It's probably for luxuries like, oh, this fancy car, oh, we want to take this trip here, oh, I need to buy the latest shoes and whatnot. And you might not think that, I'm not trying to say that you can't have that stuff, but if you're working so hard for all these materialistic things and your family's falling apart, then you might need to readjust your life a little bit. And that might be a very difficult thing to think about, but your family, this time is the time you have. Your family is your biggest ministry. And you need to devote time to your children, and you need to help your husband. I don't see why that's considered to be such a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. You have an opportunity to make a huge impact in the children that you are bringing up. that they can go out into the world and make a big impact somewhere else. If you can't have a work environment to where you can still balance out your family life and your work life, then you might need to change jobs, unfortunately. And I know that's something that you might not want to hear, but it's the truth. You know, part of the reason why kids are acting up in school and that they're unhealthy and your relationship with your husband is unhealthy is because people are not home. No one's there to develop those relationships. No one's there to teach the kid better. No one's there. Everyone's so busy that they can't have a healthy life. They're eating junk food every night. They're eating fast food most nights out of the week, or wherever the case may be. We're destroying ourselves, and we think that we're building ourselves up by getting into the work world and we're making a name for ourselves. But in the midst of us building ourselves up and being very selfish, by the way, we're being very selfish building ourselves up and building up our resume, the people around us are falling apart. We're even falling apart, maybe our health. So it's definitely something to think about. I don't want you to think that I'm against women working. I definitely feel that women can work and have a career and have a family, but they have to balance it. And when I say balance, I mean you cannot neglect your first obligation, which is your family and your household. You can't neglect that. If your family and your household is starting to fall apart, then you need to really think about, okay, I see what's going on around me. All right, Lord, you put this desire in my heart to go and work in this particular career. But I also know that you have called me to be a wife and a mother. And I know that this time here is precious. So I need you, Lord, to help me in my present situation. Either give me better hours, Lord. Help me work faster. Increase my energy. Or just make it so that way I have to do what you have for me to do. And that might be a very hard thing for some women to do. It might be very difficult for you to step away from your career for a little bit. But if for some of us, that's our only option. Some of us, we have no choice in the matter. You might not be able to work part-time, or you might not be able to fit your schedule so that way you can be 100% wife, mom, and be 100% career. You have to figure it out. And I will say, I'm not a mom. I am a wife. And even just being a wife, this was something that I had to struggle with a little. Just keeping my household with me and my husband. My husband, he is a football coach, and with that is very demanding. You have to have a very supportive wife. If your husband's in football, you have to be supportive. You have to be there to help him, because his job is very, very demanding, and it sometimes calls for you to step in and help him, and I had to take a step back. I could not work as many hours just to help my husband. So that's something, even being a wife, that I noticed, and I prayed to God about it. I said, Lord, I want to be the woman you called me to be, and I want my ministry to be what you have for me. And he worked everything out, and I am happy and grateful for that, because I'm being obedient to him. Now, with that said, he put it in my heart to pursue my career as well, and he's worked it out so that way I can still do my career. I don't work as many hours. I don't work 40-hour 8 to 5, but I still work very hard. Whenever I'm not doing things in the house, I'm working on my career. God has allowed me to be able to work from home, and on the times that I'm not working from home, He allows me to have that flexibility. My schedule works out to where I can do that. But I prayed for that. I prayed for that flexibility so that way I can still go out and work at the hospital or work, with speaking engagements. When I was just working at one job alone, it was very hard, and I was like, okay, this is not working. And I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, is to have a job that's so flexible like mine, but that's what worked for me. Before I was a dietitian, I was a teacher, and my hours, it actually worked for me very well. So I do think you can work full time and still do this. I got home around 4 or 5 o'clock, and I had all evening to do what I needed to do. I also didn't have kids though. And I know if I had kids, it would probably be a different situation. I probably would want to be home a little bit longer so that way I can make an impact onto those children's lives. But let's say they're in school. Okay, I can go to work while they're at school, and that's fine. But one thing I noticed is whenever I got too engulfed in my work and not enough in my household and my family, that's when things in my household will start falling apart. Me and my husband would argue, the things in the house would literally fall apart, like I would have to call maintenance, or we might get pestered, it's like God telling me, get your priorities in line. Your house needs to be a resemblance of how I designed the family. And so, I've worked on that. And right now in my time of life, I am in school, so having my part-time jobs and flexible schedule is what works for me. It doesn't make me better than anyone else or less of a person or anything like that. It's just what God has for me. Now, I do know that there's probably some people out there, and you have the desire to become something really great. I know some women who want to become doctors, lawyers, business women, and you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, I can't do that anymore. Oh, I'm not saying you can't do it. God's not saying you can't do it. Apparently God gave you that desire in your heart. But He wants you to do it according to His terms, not your terms and not society's terms. If God has called you to be a doctor, He will work everything out so that way you can still be fully obedient to Him and still accomplish your dreams. You just have to pray to God for wisdom, pray for Him to remove those obstacles, those things that need to be removed, and help you in those areas that you need help in. And you will find that God will multiply your hours. He will work out your schedule. He will give you the right job and the right time, the right pay, everything. And everything will be taken care of because you are being obedient to Him. But if you do things in your own way, you will find that, yeah, you might get the job you want, but you're going to have a lot of heartache at home. You're going to have a lot of things happening in your household. You're going to have kids that act a hot mess. You're going to have your house fall apart. Just whenever you do things on your own will, they don't work out. So with that said, that's just a little bit of what's in this Different by Design. John MacArthur is a great author. He goes over a lot of great things in this book. It also goes over the man and the man's role, and also the role within the church, what women should be doing in the church. So I want to encourage you guys to get this book. And if you have any questions, comments, or anything like that regarding this topic, you can leave it below. If there's something you want me to elaborate on in a future video, go ahead and put that below as well. And I hope this was an encouragement for some women out there, and hopefully it was an enlightenment in, maybe you've been struggling in this area and not realizing as a woman what you should be doing. As a wife, our first calling, our first job is our family, our husband and our children. That's our first calling. Well, besides, obviously, to be obedient to God. And then after that, after we're submissive to our husband and we do what we do to help raise our children, then we can focus on ourselves. And that self-sacrificing as a woman that we do allows us to grow and mature and bear much fruit and grow. And our fruit that we bear is so great, more than you can even imagine. More than what you could ever desire. That's how great obedience is. God will bless you. He will give you favor. I mean, I just look at my own life, just being obedient in a few areas. He has blessed me much and greatly. I want to encourage you to do the same. I know it's difficult, but you can do it. And right now, I just, encourage you to say a little prayer to God. We pray, Lord, that you just help us as women to be obedient to you. And even when it's difficult to understand why we are to do what you called us to do, Lord, we pray that you just help us. In Jesus' name, amen. Alright, well, if you guys like this video and you want to see more like it, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. I'm going to have videos out coming every week to you guys. I love you guys so much, and I wish the best for you. Be encouraged and grow in God's grace, love, and mercy. I love you guys. Bye.